are not issues in that area. It becomes a luxury nobody will really listen to if you even talk about it. So the reality is more painful. While the world measures productivity through markets, industries, and formal employment, millions of women in our communities spend most of their lives sustaining families without recognition, income, protection, or relief. Studies done by Aga Khan University Institute of Human Development, our consortium lead in the care space with IDRC funding, indicate that women in Kenya spend nearly 5 times more hours on unpaid care work than men. To be very exact, that is 4.6 times more. So what does that mean? So if that is the issue, in the Asal region, the burden is even more, if that is the confessional data. But then there are these areas that are hard to reach. The statistics are not even available. That burden is even more, that is our belief, because of drought, which is so recurrent, poverty, insecurity, weak infrastructure, pastoralist mobility, and limited childcare support systems. When we are talking about security, we are talking of two insecurity. The resource-based insecurity and the transnational security issues, which we are all aware of, the violent extremism. So all these are part of the issues that really overwhelm the burden on our mothers. A mother in northern Kenya may spend hours searching for water, return home to prepare meals using firewood, care for the livestock, especially the shots, attend to children, support the elderly relatives, and still be expected to contribute economically because the man has left and disappeared with a few herds of camel, so as to make sure they can at least go far into the interior to graze. So you can imagine of that reality. And I just want to put a little joke here. In the farthest pastoralist frontiers, they even know domestic workers. We're really talking about domestic workers in some of these places, but then in those places, the domestic workers are even not there to ease the burden. So mothers carry the entire weight of care alone, often assisted only by young girls, whose childhood quietly disappears into the struggle for family survival. I want you to take a mental tour and picture a case of a woman who is herding goats with a kid strapped at the back, carrying a load of firewood on the head. That's the mother I'm talking of, and that's the mother I want you to visualize. This is not merely a woman's issue. If we need to talk about that now, it's also important we realize this work should not be a woman's issue. It's a development issue, it's an economic issue, it's a human capital issue, and if you ignore it, we cannot genuinely talk about inclusive growth, gender equality, or sustainable development. Care ecosystem friends. No country can fully prosper when half of its population is exhausted by survival responsibilities before they even participate in economic life. Weak childcare systems reduce women's productivity. They limit girls' education, they affect nutrition and child development, they increase poverty, and they deepen inequality. When you talk about the health indicators, issues to do with malnutritional statistics in this country, I'm sure the situation is even dire in those areas. And all other health indicators, including skilled birth delivery, issues on immunization, fully immunized child, and all these kind of statistics. But then with all those very damning kind of indications, there is still hope. And this is the hope we want to also spotlight a little bit. Across the FCDC counties, important efforts are already taken shape, courtesy of our very proactive Constitution 2010, where we had talked about the devolution, and to some extent, it brought redistribution of the resources into all parts of this country. And as a result, the county governments and partners are investing in ECD systems, community health systems, water infrastructure, nutrition programs, and women empowerment initiatives. According to Schedule 4 of the Constitution of Kenya, we are aware of what is devolved and what is not devolved. So when some of these resources go to the interior, despite devolving even the inadequacies related to weak governance, we are also devolving at least some resources to make sure opportunities are also a little bit equalized. Through collaboration with the Aga Khan University Institute of Human Development under the IDRC-supported Care for All initiative, we have strengthened conversations around integrated ECD systems, where we're talking about the nurturing care framework to make sure at least our ECD is fully integrated. We are talking about the care framework. We have also come into full glare as FCDC to support on issues to do with policy coordination. FCDC is basically a regional economic bloc that fosters socio-economic development for these counties, and we are very large on issues to do with policy advocacy, issues to do with convening and other related matters. We have also embraced the issues to do with the community-centered care models and integrated ECD models. You are aware a good percentage of the frontier people are from the Islamic faith. And we normally delay enrolling our children in the ECD centers because of the Duksi and Madrasa issues. And integration, as per the Education Act, is a key thing. So we're trying to see, using the Madrasa Early Childhood program, to at least make sure we embrace the integrated ECD model. We're also getting engaged in policy and advocacy conversations. FCDC has played a central role in coordinating programs like the Pastoral Leadership Summit 2024 in Wajir, where the president was the chief guest, and we were talking about 103 parliamentarians coming from the 15 counties in the Asal context, about a third of Kenyans governors, and similar number for other political representation. And among the issues that were captured in the resolution read before the president was investing in the ECD ecosystem, where we were able at least to put those resolutions under the presidential directives management information system. If you look at that, among the issues that are tracked under that resolution is the ECD investments. We also played a very strong role in the ECD conference that has been played this morning to at least make sure our governors and our counties take an active role along with the devolution conference and other issues. We have also developed the first ECD strategic plan 2025-2029 for the frontier counties, where you can get information related to that under ECD, which was informed by a very robust baseline survey we conducted along with Aga Khan and other partners in the ecosystem. And from there, we were able to now see how we can move to the next phase of implementing that strategic plan, and we are piloting with 4 counties, Mandera, Garissa, Lamu, and Isiolo, to establish multi-sectoral ECD technical working group, so as to make sure the resource is there, but they are uncoordinated, they are very scattered. How can we make sure what is beyond the CIDP, which we heavily borrowed from in developing the strategic plan, is also funded in a very coordinated manner. We are promoting integration between madrasa and formal ECD systems so that children from pastoralists and Muslim communities transition smoothly into education pathways. We sit very strongly in the NACONOG-led technical working group for madrasa and Duksis, where we are trying to at least embed policy issues on integration. And through this funding, we are working very closely with women-led rights organizations in Cielo and Lamu, what we call the Cielo Women Voice Network, and Muslim Women Advancement of Rights and Protection, MWA, where they are supporting women with livelihood skills, financial literacy, forming the FSLS and entrepreneurship opportunities. FCDC also works very closely with government agencies, so we are also working with affirmative groups to make sure at least they're able to access these very basic resources for improving their livelihoods. And importantly, we are beginning to challenge harmful social norms by involving men in caregiving conversations. We talk about the male barazas. Even we encourage male to go with their wives during the prenatal clinic visits, so as to make sure they can appreciate, at least they know before the child is born, really the kind of conditions the mother is going through, so as to also elevate and scale up the prenatal care incidences in our areas. I will wish to maybe directly move to, ladies and gentlemen, we must now move beyond seeing childcare as charity or welfare. Childcare is economic infrastructure. Just like roads connect markets, childcare normally connects women to opportunity. Just like electricity powers industries, childcare powers productivity. Just like schools build knowledge, care systems also build human capital. When childcare systems are strong, women participate more in business and leadership, children receive proper nutrition, stimulation, and protection, families become more resilient, communities become more stable, and economies grow stronger. This is why investment in care systems must become central in county planning and national development frameworks. And that's why we always insist our CADPs must always have a lot of care issues. And if you look at some of the things I've written, there was the issue of having some indicators to at least make sure care issues are also tracked and measured. So we need child-sensitive budgeting. In our programming, we are supporting Lamu and Siolo to at least come up with child-sensitive budgeting. We're just timing the budget cycles to make sure at which appropriate time to intervene, you know when the cycle starts. And planning normally precedes budgeting. So when do we start the ADPs? When do we review them? So those are the times to enter and make sure we influence how the fiscal strategy papers and CPROPs are also brought into board. With NACONEC, we are thinking about clean energy options where energy-saving GCOs are given to the households so as to make sure at least it really saves them from a lot of time using firewood, which is also very unhealthy. As we discuss empowerment today, let us remember this. A woman cannot fully participate in economic life when she is overwhelmed by unpaid labor. A child cannot thrive without nurturing care. And a nation cannot achieve inclusive development while care systems remain neglected. The future we seek will not only be built through policies and conferences. We have very good policies, the care policy is there, and all other goodies in our pack in terms of regulations. But then it will be built when communities begin valuing caregiving, when women begin sharing responsibilities, when governments begin budgeting for care infrastructure, when development partners continue investing in people-centered systems, and when society finally recognizes that caring for children is not a side issue, it is a nation building. The choice before us is very clear. We can continue treating childcare as invisible work and pay the price through poverty, inequality, malnutrition, and lost productivity. So if we continue ignoring realities, the realities will catch up with us. Or we can invest boldly in resilient childcare systems and unlock the full potential of women, children, and communities across Kenya. I liked when she was talking about the domestic care issues. I listened it very well. And I just want to add another quote. Quality begets quality. When you give quality to the domestic worker, your child will be qualitative, the family menus will be qualitative, and the household unity will also be one of productivity and prosperity. I believe the time for that transformation is now. Together, let us build care systems that restore dignity to women, give children the best start in life, and create stronger, more resilient communities across the FCDC region where I come from as a start, and the rest of the country and beyond. I believe it is possible, it is doable, if everybody does his bit, and you support where you can, without malice, and without only looking at what is good for you. They normally say what is good for the goose is also good for, what was that proverb? Yes, something like that. Thank you so much. I just want to stop at that.
Thank you so much, Mr. Malim, for reminding us that we have choices and we need to make the right choices, and we cannot ignore what's before us and what has been discussed today. So, ladies and gentlemen, everyone, we have another speaker who will be speaking to us today. The name is Rosalia Ndambuki, Assistant Director, School Health and Development, Nairobi City County Government. A brief introduction. Rosalia is a highly experienced ECD professional, play-based learning expert, and quality assurance officer with strong expertise in competence-based education, CBE, teacher training, co-curricular instruction, and materials development. Rosalia is currently serving as Assistant Director, School Health and Development, with a passion for promoting quality, integrity, and holistic learner development. I'm smiling as I finish. Karibu sana, Rosalia.
Good morning, everyone. God is good, and all the time. Yeah, I'm honored to be in this webinar meeting on identifying the women and what they do as the backbone of our families, communities, and economies. When women are empowered economically, families will be stable, children will receive better care and education, and the communities become more productive and resilient. Now, in Nairobi County, women carry the largest share we can have working tea as we continue. So women carry the largest share of caregiving responsibilities. The lack of proper childcare limits the women, especially in seeking employment, running businesses, attending to trainings like these ones, pursuing education, and also participating fully in economic activities. So childcare is not a cost. It is also not a family issue. It is an economic development issue. When counties invest in quality childcare systems, they enable women and men to participate productively in the economy while ensuring children are safe, healthy, and supported in their development. For Nairobi County, improving childcare systems is essential because of rapid urbanization. We also have increased number of working parents. We have growth on the informal economy and rising demand for affordable and safe childcare services. Many women in Nairobi struggle to balance incoming generating activities and caregiving responsibilities. Many women without affordable childcare. Many women also have reduced working hours. They leave their jobs. They accept low-paying work and also leave children, in some instances, in unsafe environments. So investment in childcare will lead to increased women economy, improved family income, better child development outcomes, reduced poverty, strong communications. So the key messages we have as Nairobi City County is childcare is an economic infrastructure that supports productivity and family well-being. So the responsibility of Nairobi City County has a major role in ensuring childcare services are affordable, accessible, safe, and properly regulated. But how the county should go is they should have allocate dedicated budgets. When we talk about dedicated budgets, we are talking of safe childcare areas or centers, child-friendly facilities, water and sanitation, play and learning spaces for our children, inclusive facilities for children who are abled differently. They should also have strengthened policy and regulation, which will also help in licensing systems, quality assurance mechanisms, inspection and monitoring, and operational standards. So, improving childcare, we also need to invest in the infrastructure where childcare spaces should be integrated into markets. Like now in Nairobi, we have a few markets where we have childcare, like in this market in Kariakoo. We have a childcare center there where the parents, they take their children there when they are doing their business. Informal settlements, public institutions, housing, so to mention. So improving childcare systems must promote shared responsibility between men, women, employers, and the government. Collaboration between county governments and stakeholders produce strong childcare systems. So before I end, I would just like to say let us prioritize sustainable childcare financing and strengthening partnerships that ensure every child has access to safe, affordable, and quality childcare while enabling parents to participate fully in economic development. His Excellency the Governor of Nairobi, Johnson Sakaja, has a mantra that says, a city where every learner thrives. So in Nairobi, through inclusive quality care, innovation, talent development, and equal opportunities is the direction we should go to make sure our learners thrive. When childcare systems are strong, women work with dignity, children thrive, and communities prosper. Nairobi City County has the opportunity to lead by prioritizing childcare in policy, planning, and budgeting. Thank you very much.
Let us give Nairobi County a bigger applause than that. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I want just to let you know that arrangement that we have is that we take tea even as we continue. So there will be no tea break. We are doing this because we realize that there are also people online, and we would like them to continue participating. But for those who are here, you have the privilege of going to take your tea and continue without taking a break so that we can proceed as efficiently as we can. We now want to move on to the next session, which is going to be a panel. We are going to be, that panel is going to be chaired by Stella. Stella is well known in this sector. Key actor in ECD, working with the Ministry of Health. And for those who are in this sector, you must surely know that she's a key component of how we are progressing the agenda for children and today she is here to help us with this panel that is going to discuss issues around child care. I would like to invite the panelists. I would like to run through the panelists and ask them to join the Stella on the stage. There will be a microphone provided for you, and Stella will lead you through that process. Well, first of all, I would like to introduce Ms. Frida Wawira Nyaga, Executive Director of COVAL. She's a gender equity, safeguarding and social inclusion specialist with over a decade of experience in development work. She has worked on projects that focus on prevention and response to sexual and gender-based violence, economic empowerment, sexual reproductive health rights, safeguarding and child protection, and climate justice. She's currently working with COVAL as Executive Director. Previously, she has worked with Plan International Kenya, Women Fighting AIDS in Kenya, WOFAC, and Watoto Watch Network. She holds a Bachelor of Arts in Social Work from the University of Nairobi, and is currently pursuing a Master of Arts in Human Rights from the same university. Let's welcome Frida Wawira Nyaga. If you see her, give her a round of applause. Thank you very much. We also have on the panel Esther Ngado, Child Health and Development Officer, the Action Foundation. Esther Ngado is a dedicated Child Health and Development Officer with experience in advancing inclusive child health, early childhood development, and disability inclusion programs. She works closely with children with disabilities, caregivers, and communities to strengthen access to healthcare, rehabilitation, education, and psychosocial support services. She's passionate about equitable opportunities for every child. Esther contributes to program implementation, community engagement, caregiver empowerment, and advocacy initiatives that promote the well-being and development of vulnerable children. Her work is driven by a commitment to inclusion, dignity, and creating supportive environments where children can reach their full potential. Please join me in welcoming Esther Ngado. Thank you very much. A round of applause, please. Thank you very much. I would also like to take this opportunity to invite Martin Kieng, Partnerships Manager, Kidogo Alias. He brings 11 years of experience in social enterprise development, specifically in childcare, and more than 7 years in NGO offering quality and affordable healthcare. He considers himself a social entrepreneur. He has expertise and skills set in partnerships, business development, human-centered and business model design, product development, and has been involved in various system changes in childcare, notably contributing in the creation of guidelines for employer-supported childcare with IFC World Bank, global costing for ECCE, and he believes that as childcare is an intersection of both social and economic aspects. It's a human rights issue, and it's an opportunity inequality issue, and business can be a force for good in accelerating justice, social justice. Please join me in welcoming Martin Kieng. We also have Dennis Mutinda. Dennis Mutinda is Chief Operations Officer, Tiny Totos. Dennis he leads operations, data systems, innovation, and field performance to support the growth and impact of organizations' childcare network. He drives data-driven decision-making, operational efficiency, and technology integration across the organization. Prior to Tiny Totos, Dennis spent 19 years at KPMG, rising to Senior Manager, Data and Analytics, where he led regional analytics, automation, governance, and digital transformation engagements across East and Central Africa. He's a former president of the SACA Kenya chapter and currently chair of Data Analytics Kenya, with a passion for using data and technology to create meaningful organizational and social impact. Please join me in welcoming Dennis Mutinda. Last but not least, we have Stella Mengele, founder and executive director, Stella Mengele Foundation. She's a proud member of ECD Network in Kenya. She's a dual impact leader in the ECD space, dedicated to the advancement of children and the empowerment of women. She's the global edutainment director of Gift Connect, a premier childcare institution in the USA, and the founder executive director of the Stella Mengele Foundation. She bridges global edutainment strategies with grassroots action in rural Kitui County, where SMF, Stella Mengele Foundation, empowers families with nurturing care and economic initiatives for mothers. Stella's transformative work in Kitui County has earned her the Head of State Commendation from the President of Kenya in the year 2024 and the Global Leader Award for the Women World Forum Foundation 2026. Stella is a passionate advocate for the idea that quality childcare is the ultimate engine for child outcomes, gender equity, family prosperity, and community resilience. Please join me in welcoming Stella Mengele. Lastly, and not least, we have Irene Musioma, Programs Manager at Greek. Irene Musioma, she's responsible for overall program development, management, implementation, with a special focus on women's empowerment and girls' education and early childhood development and education. Irene stands at the forefront of advocating for a brighter future of children, women, and communities, especially those left behind. And a round of applause for, please join me in welcoming Irene Musioma. Thank you. A round of applause for this eminent panel as we hand over to Stella. Thank you. A round of applause, please. Thank you.
Munaweza, thank you so much. Thank you so much. Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, everyone, we've come to another panel session where we have partners and stakeholders. We are focusing now on systems and policy perspective, just to hear what stakeholders in this space have to say. And I will be asking each of them a question. Please be as comprehensive as you can, but because of time, not too long. So I will start with Kidogo Ali. Yes, Martin, how are you? So based on your work with childcare providers in the communities, what are the key challenges you have observed that affect the quality of childcare services on the ground, particularly in informal settlements?
So specifically to informal settlements, we work in urban and peri-urban regions within within counties. So one of the biggest challenges, of course, is the environmental shocks. I think right now it's raining. There are places that we are having issues with flooding in some regions, which is common. If you look at Nairobi, for example, for Nakuru, for Nairobi County, Nakuru, Naivasha, there's an issue of flooding. Other challenges that we experience through in informal settlements, it's centralization of ECD within counties. So considering ECD is multi-sectoral, so we don't have that coordination of ECD counties. And we know as we implementation is a system, not it's not a project. So other than that, the other things that we're experiencing across urban and peri-urban informal settlements as we implement our Kidogo program is the it's the I don't know how best to put it. It's on an issue of how childcare is coordinated. So I think it's the interdepartmental, cross-departmental, intergovernmental coordination of childcare. Before we think of coordination of childcare with private sector, if it's about financing and all the other things. So just within counties, so intergovernmental, so this is through departments. I can cite an example within health. For example, there are different departments. There is health, there is nutrition, there is public health, there is medical health. So the interdepartmental coordination for childcare is the biggest challenge. The other thing is, I think last but not the least, is of course the big issue about the money. Insufficient. I think I'm moving away from saying inadequate. It's insufficient financing targeted effectively for childcare. I think if we have, so those are the different challenges that we are facing, so that it can ease us to implement our program.
Thank you so much, Martin. I think not much has changed since. So there's a lot of work ahead in terms of the work you're doing, and thank you for the work you do and every effort that you're making on the ground to ensure that the underserved and informal settlements are getting some form of quality within those contexts. So thank you so much, Martin and Kidogo Alias. Ladies and gentlemen, everyone, next we have Tiny Totos. We have Dennis. Dennis, how are you?
I am good.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. What practical improvements, investments, or innovations are needed to better strengthen sustainable childcare systems that better support caregivers and enhance the quality, accessibility, and sustainability of childcare services for working families? So focus on the work that Tiny Totos is doing. Please mention challenges and some solutions that you can propose. Thank you.
All right. When I saw this question, I was like, some of them have been answered from the presentations that have been done and even the testimonials that have been shared. I was hearing Malim there, I was like, okay, I'm nodding. This one is already giving out everything that I wanted to share, but just in point form so that we can be able to actually look at it from the perspective of one angle where we come in and where others play a role. The first one, and having been mentioned even by Domestic Workers Professional Association, is we need to build capacity. We need to professionalize the caregivers. Now, for us in Tiny Totos, we do have a NITA certified early childhood program, which takes the caregivers, daycare owners, and others to be able to understand and appreciate the whole journey of doing childcare. And over and above that, the training is one aspect, the coaching is another. Where do we go in and support those ones on the ground? Because you can learn, but you can also practice. We also do a lot of coaching, and it helps to be able to build that capacity for them to now run things by themselves. The other thing that is very important that I've taken notes about is improving access to financing. There's the direct way, obviously, people are looking for financial institutions to be able to provide this service, but normally they are out of the loop. They are more expensive, they are unreachable, they want bigger amounts, while some of these caregivers just want small amounts that have quick turnovers so that they can run their businesses better, be able to achieve small aspects of their activities on a day-to-day basis. And most of those financial institutions do not offer that kind of approach. And therefore, it leaves them going for these fast, high-interest loans from mobile providers, which now puts them in a trap. And this is one of the areas where we have, for example, an internal pot of, let me say, credit that we provide for them to enhance their daycares. So when they want to purchase a mattress, when they want to look at how they can expand their daycare from a 1-bedroom to a 2-bedroom, those are some of the activities that need that kind of funding, and therefore we do provide a small revolving fund that helps for them to be able to now equip themselves and expand as well. Strengthening digital systems is another area, because yes, we've all talked about, and people are talking about AI everywhere. They're talking about analytics, and obviously my background is analytics, so there's a lot that I can appreciate that data does. And we do collect a lot of information directly as Tiny Totos, but they also collect information because they have to take the attendance of the children, they have to look at the payments, they have to check on their own expenses. How do they know they're profitable? They can do paperwork, but sometimes that takes time for them to appreciate the bigger picture. So when we brought in, for example, Mtoto app, which is an app that we developed internally, it helps for them to be able to see end-to-end how they are performing and what they need to focus on to make themselves grow profitably. And that also helps in the bigger picture when we are doing assessments of performance across different areas. It gave us insights on what kind of payments do parents, let me say, accommodate. What kind of services can be expanded to this kind of business, because it's not only just taking care of the children, there is far much more that they do that people don't recognize. Even washing the children, they wash their clothes, they actually plait their hairs. All those are different kind of incomes that actually come while the child is in the daycare. And when we capture this information, it helps for them to now see it as entrepreneurial rather than just childcare is a charity kind of service. We promote practical quality standards, and this is important because sometimes we can put a minimum standard, but it's not affordable. So we go back and look at a daycare and we say, do you have, for example, a jerry can? If you do have a jerry can, can we pierce a hole on it and we put a stick so that you have a water hand washing system, so that we do not have challenges when it comes to the cleanliness of the children and they are now handling food and all that. And it's a simple solution because it's practical enough to be taken at that level. If they can afford to buy a hand washing kit, then that's better. But it's not about pushing the standards to the level where now we start struggling. Do I debate buying this, or do I now take care of the children accordingly? We expand the employer-supported childcare, and this is important because I think many corporates, and especially in the agribusiness, there is opportunity for childcare to be enhanced and for productivity to now be the overall outcome. For example, if you take Naivasha and how many flower farms have casuals that work there from morning to evening, they might make a decision as a parent to be able to leave early because they don't know how the child is at home. But if there was a care system that is actually supporting, it increases productivity for that particular farm. And it helps for overall outcome to be better for both the caregiver who's actually taking care of the children, and also the organization in terms of its profitability. I'm not saying organizations should go and set up their own daycares. I'm saying they can make use of the ecosystem around them, which they have always had, but now enhance them so that they meet a certain level of standard or appreciation. So employers can actually play a role, but they don't have to do it directly. The other thing is supporting community-based childcare models. And this brings me back to what Malim was talking about. And VSLAs are all over. VSLAs, which are the village savings groups. Yes, these groups actually can go beyond just savings. And they have done that. We have seen it in Uganda, where we are also working with LABE, and they work with the VSLAs that have set up what are known as home learning centers. And these home learning centers are just initiatives within that group where they say, let's take one of our neighbors' homes. Let's build a structure. Let us bring in some people with education background to be able to take care of these children as we go to the farm, as we do any other activity. And it has actually enhanced childcare rather than only dealing with it as a family within your own spaces. So looking at it in terms of the community coming together and working to be able to bring out that kind of output makes sense, because now you have productivity coming into play, and then the children are also being engaged accordingly. Working with government, I know many of you have mentioned the same, and it is not something we can run away from. As we say in Kiswahili, kidole kimoja kivunji chawa, you've heard of that. In English, we can say no man is an island. So government also cannot work alone, and we can also not work alone. We have to work with government. So for Tiny Turtles, in the health sector, working with the NCCG, Judy and the team who are actually in charge of the CHPs, we have a lot of discussions and engagement and referrals that we do to make sure that the children interventions in terms of health are dealt with in the shortest time period so that they are not actually adversely affected. And we also look at nutritional aspects and all other activities in relation to the same. But also we've been invited to forums and working groups to be able to share our expertise in terms of childcare programs and policies. And it's always important when we mention, while we are talking about policies at the top, please bring the people at the bottom to tell you exactly what happens. So we normally say invite the daycare owners, invite the caregivers on that front. Second last, increasing parental engagement. And this one was very important for us because, yes, I know parents, the first thing that they do is to be able to look for a place where they can leave a child so that they go and do their work. But over and above that, they will slowly realize that there is more to just leaving that child in that space. Can they also get something worth their development? Remember, a child's brain development is between 0 and 5 years, getting to about 80% to 90%. If you're not engaging them at that level, then you're already going to have a challenge when they actually grow beyond those ages. And we should take care of that by informing the parents about what the things are that they should be doing at that level. The daycares themselves and the owners are actually building that capability, so that's why they're learning about ECD and being able to train in early childhood. But also the parents at home need to put in the effort. So we do parents meetings for the daycares so that they also get to be enhanced and build the knowledge around it, because knowledge empowers. You can never run away from that. And we also engage during different forums in WhatsApp for them to now learn that they invest the time right now in the children, they will have a better future for them. Last but not least, which I also heard being mentioned by Trevor Noah in the SCOL event that was happening in UK a few weeks ago when he was interviewing Wawera. Wawera is actually a very good name when it comes to childcare. So when you hear Wawera, just ask if they deal with childcare. He mentioned that his mother talked about help the doers do. What he meant was we need to take care of not becoming helpless. And this is what is known as learned helplessness. Let us not make them feel like they are inferior, that they cannot contribute to the process of childcare, that you have to donate support financially for everything while they can't actually also put in their own effort. So it's a balance, and it's important. This system has actually sustained itself for a while, even if there are no policies. If you go to the different areas where we actually operate, you'd realize that these daycares existed. These mothers or daycare owners were there because they saw the need, and therefore they actually stood out to be able to perform and do the activities that are there. We need to just enhance them so that they get to the next level where they now see more productivity, more outcome, and more value, which the community would appreciate and they would also appreciate. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Dennis. Tiny Totos. I hope you're working with Martin, doing a lot at the community level. A bit different, but I see SDGs in your work. I see ensuring that the well-being of these people is looked after. It's very important. So there's a lot happening. Still the same old, but opportunities to hopefully scale up.
Yes.
Scale up. Yeah, thank you guys. And I know that you work with many women in your institutions, so continue the good work you're doing and work together. There's a lot you can do together. Next, we have Kovao. So Kovao, we have Frida. Frida, how are you?
I'm good.
Okay. So I have a question for you. How can partnerships between government and private sector, communities, and gender actors be strengthened to better support paid childcare providers, respond to the needs of women and families, and advance women's economic empowerment? Kovao.
Thank you very much, Tara. Good morning, everyone. Good morning. I hope you're well. I've really enjoyed the conversations today, especially I was challenged listening to the Papapreneur, Michael. I think we need to see more of that in panels in order to challenge the existing gender roles and norms. Actually, it reminded me about a conversation we had with my spouse some time back, and we were looking for care worker, and specifically a nurse to take care of a child who needs special attention. And then I asked him, because there was a very good nurse, I asked him, can we hire a male nurse? And I'm telling you, it was a different conversation. And I'm interested in hearing from the men in the house, because we are talking about challenging existing gender stereotypes, including Dennis from here. How many of us would hire male caregivers in our house, especially the men? Wow. I think you are 1 in 1,000, honestly. So I think it's very important we start with ourselves as challenging the stereotypes that a community. And I want to echo what Elizabeth said, that care work is the foundation of all work. So today I'm here because I'm enjoying, in quotes, I'm not so sure, but it is quality childcare services at my home. And if it was not for that, I would not be able even to turn up for this conversation today. And I was looking at some statistics provided by ILO, and they were saying that for every $1 invested in the care economy, we see up to 3 times or $3 returns in GDP. So we invest $1, and in return we get $3. And they were also saying that the care sector has the potential to generate 3 million jobs globally. And you can imagine how many of the care workers would come from Africa if we are talking about generating 3 million jobs across the world. And also appreciating that in Kenya we have over 2 million domestic workers working in the sector. So what you're saying is that we must stop viewing childcare as a private family burden to start seeing it as economic infrastructure. I think we can all agree that that was a cross-cutting message. Now, in terms of how we can strengthen partnerships, I direct that we are more of repeating ourselves, but it's also a way of sending one message and us agreeing that this is the way forward. And I like what Dennis has said, as well as Dr. McCovey, on professionalization. And I would say that we are not short of frameworks. Actually, NITA has three curriculums. They have the home management curriculum, they have the caregiver curriculum, and now recently, cover with very many other partners, worked on the finalization of Childcare Level 2 curriculum, and it was recently published. But the question in terms of professionalization is that there is raw uptake of those the courses that are already available in the market. So in terms of strengthening partnership, then we must ask ourselves, those ones who are here in this room, what is our role in terms of supporting care workers to be skilled? The government has done its work, though we need to work with them in terms of strengthening the rollout, especially of the NITA Childcare Level 2 curriculum, so that we can have more skilled workers. But also ourselves, we have a role to play in terms of providing incentives. Are we giving even time off to our care workers in our homes so that they can participate in these career development opportunities? And this is where Elizabeth was talking about even time off work so that they can attend to other responsibilities. But also in terms of, are we ready to pay for quality childcare services? And I like to challenge ourselves. Let's stop talking about the minimum. Honestly, even when you're looking for a job, you're normally told that for us as cover, we like advertising and putting the salary scale, so that when you're applying, you know how much you get. But would you want to get a salary on the lower end? Like, for instance, if I said a programs manager is between 150 to 200, would you like to get the 150? No. So we are saying, and we are challenging, let's stop talking about the minimum wage. Let's start talking about a living wage, so that they are able to take care of their bills. You know, the other day we were working with a care worker to draft a letter to the employer, and we asked her, please share with us how you normally use the salary that you receive of 10,000. And the math were not mathing, for a lack of a better word. You know, when you try to divide that money into school fees, they have to go to health care, they have to feed their families. So let's stop talking about a minimum to a living wage. Now, the other thing that I like the conversation around is on where I'm pushing more on is in terms of the care infrastructure. I think we are one of the few countries in Africa where we have now the national care policy, and as COVAL and WUSC, we are working we are working with the government on the ratification of ILO 189 and 190, and that process just speaks on the power of partnerships. You know, we started the process sometime last year, and we have been able to conduct the public participations across the different regions, 7 of them, and it's because the partners brought in resources. So even while we talk about the care policy, we must push for gender-responsive budgeting. A policy which is not funded remains a suggestion. So it's to call upon the stakeholders in this room our job actually has just started. With the care policy, then we should push for the government to allocate adequate resources for the implementation of the care policy. And then even while now we ratify the ILO 189 and 190, then we also move the conversation out towards how do we strengthen implementation. And the third thing I want to speak about is in terms of addressing the barriers to participation, specifically the it's an increasing concern whereby care workers, especially those ones working in the domestic setup, which is considered a private sector setup, they go through sexual and gender-based violence. Unfortunately, they can't speak out because speaking out, it means losing their job, and they will lose their earning. They have to go back then to their homes, and they left their homes because of the conditions there then. So it's to encourage, whenever we are doing work, to encourage the care workers to speak out whenever there is a case of sexual and gender-based violence. And as COVA, we normally provide pro bono legal aid services to survivors of sexual and gender-based violence, including care workers. And then looking at the workplace, you know, I was reflecting at the COVID-19 period. I'm one of a person, I'm a mom to a COVID-19 baby. I'm not and let me tell you, I normally compare that baby with my other babies. I think that is one of the healthiest baby that I have. And it's because I was able to spend, you know, that was the time during the lockdown that we were able to spend time with our babies. I was able to do the 6 months exclusive breastfeeding. So the health outcomes were better. So in our workplace, how are we supporting our parents to work and to also support their children? So I like saying that we must move from calling it maternity and paternity leave to calling it parental care. You know, Michael challenged us that both of us are equal parents. So if we are to be equal, then let's call it parental care and encourage men to utilize the parental leave, well, because once they get that, you'll never see them at home, but at the workplace they were also given leave. So let's challenge the existing norms within our workplaces. Let's support women to thrive both at home and in the workplace through flexible working arrangements. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Frida Koval. I've had pro bono work. There's amazing, public interest cases that come from that, and it's amazing work that can be done. So think in that direction. Thank you so much, Frida. Ladies and gentlemen, everyone, we have Stella Mengele Foundation. That's coming next. Stella, how are you?
I'm good, thank you.
You're doing well?
Yes, I am.
Okay. So I have a question for you. What role can community-based organizations and local initiatives play in strengthening nurturing care and ensuring caregivers receive the support and recognition needed to provide quality childcare services? Over to you.
Thank you very much, Stella. Apparently, I'm also Stella Mengele with Gift Connect. I will be direct. Developmental education and emotional and economic empowerment too. Kenya is a very beautiful country, and I think one of the most amazing things is how we have small chamas everywhere. Stella Mengele Foundation and the Gift Connect work in educating caregivers in the villages. We are focusing not in the cities, because over 67% of Kenyan population is in the villages. I am a champion for educating parents and caregivers about parenting, because we are taught about very many things. We are trained to become the professionals we are. But I do not know a school that teaches people to be parents. And I am really happy that this conversation is alive right now, because we are creating awareness in every corner of this country. We are working in Kitui currently. And what we do is we train the parents in large events. I also happen to be a musician. And so I have been using my influence as a musician to bring people together and give them the education. And then after that, we create groups, or we use existing chamas to continue with the education of nurturing care, and also give them seed money for a long-term investment of table banking. That becomes a bank they can borrow and do small businesses, pay it back to them. It is a grant to that community, and it gives them a reason to meet again and compare the milestones of their children and discuss challenges. And there are very amazing ideas from the mothers in the village. We're currently working with mothers only because, again, we have not yet overcome the cultural stereotype that the mother is the primary caregiver of a child. We will get there. From our experience with our work, I believe if we got to train the people that are running the CBOs, because chamas and CBOs are pretty much the same. The difference is who benefits. To create room for education, to discuss parenting, to discuss childcare, and find a way to give solutions for emotional issues and economic issues, because a strained caregiver is not going to give the quality childcare we all want, whether they are strained financially or strained emotionally. So if these CBOs would become areas where probably every once a month or every once in a quarter, they discuss childcare, or they are trained on childcare, and probably provide small loans or financial services, we would transform. We would transform the childcare conversation in this country, and I think I would want to end it at that because we don't have much time. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Stella. You've made me remember memories I might have lost or forgotten about conferences on parenting and things like that. And I also remember gender civic educators. Do we still have them? There are some people who used to do some education at the community level. I wonder if they're still there and whether they do parenting and whether they know about child development. So just some thoughts. Thank you so much, Stella. Okay. Then next we have Greek. Irene. How are you, Irene?
I'm good.
I have a question for you.
Yeah.
From a research and coordination perspective, what opportunities exist for strengthening evidence learning and multi-sectoral collaboration to improve childcare systems and support caregivers in Kenya? Over to you.
Thank you so much. Before I respond to that question, let me share some little about Greek, because I know it's a new name in the room. It is an abbreviation for Grassroots Nest for Innovations and Change. It's a long name, I know. That's why you use the abbreviation most of the time, Greek. Greek, we work in the rural parts of Kajiado, that is in Kenya. And in Tanzania, we work in Arusha and Manyara. And in Uganda, the northern part of Uganda, which is post-conflict region. And we carefully selected those regions because of how they have been left behind and how they have limitation in accessing to opportunities and some of the services. At first, when we went to those regions, we were working on a program which was on accelerated learning program, which was a catch-up program for literacy for those children who are not able to read and write, yet they're in the upper classes. But one of the things that we're really intrigued, why is this happening here, that a grade 3 learner is not able to read a 3-letter word, which was quite interesting. But one of the major reasons that we're able to get is that how they're able to skip their classes, one being the distances to schools and sometimes being able to drop out of school. Why are they not attending school regularly? You find that during the market days, they have to be left behind to take care of the younger ones. And during the dry season, and the goats have to be taken to very far places, the children are tasked to be able to take care of the goats. And we ask ourselves, like most of the time, we used to think that childcare is only affecting the urban and the peri-urban regions, whereby the parents are very much busy. But we realize that this may be just an assumption that we made, and realize that childcare is universal and it is needed across, not only in the urban, but also in the rural part, and especially the areas that where we think that we have the communal aspect where the grandmothers are there to take care of the grandchildren, but it is not happening at the moment. Because the grandmothers of nowadays, they're very young, they have their chamas to attend to, they have their lives to attend to. So childcare is a needed aspect even in the rural parts. And now going to the question, what are the opportunities that we do have? I know it has been talked from even the presenters before me. It is nothing new under the sun that you're going to invent. But the question that we'll need to ask ourselves, what are we going to do different? We have some of the evidences that have been generated. Most people, before they start a program, they do some researches to do if this program is going to thrive here. But what are we going to do with those particular researches? It's just for evidence that when you're asked that we have realized this and this, but what are we going to do about that? Yes, we have read that childcare is a crisis and we need to work on it. What are we going to action on it? And as we're working, we realized that one of the opportunities we have, speaking from the rural parts of Kajiado where we are working in Kenya, we are not going to reinvent the wheel and say that childcare is a new thing under the sun, but how do we work with the existing structures to strengthen the childcare system within the ecosystem that is going to work for them? And one of the things that we have been doing is working with the communities. And I'm glad that Stella, you're working with the CBOs, which are there in the community. And COVID has taught us much that sometimes when things strike, we tend to run away and fear the communities. And most of the time we go back to our villages where we were born to be able to start a living. But if you're not being able to empower that particular village where we're going to go back to, we're going to get a mess. And then it will beat the purpose that you've been here talking about childcare, but it is not happening in my village. And now when we're working with the community structures in the community, is empowering the community leaders to know that they have power to change some of the things around there. We have the resources there. We have some spaces that you're not using. How do you utilize those spaces to have childcare spaces? If the woman is going to take care of the goats, if they're going to go to the market, you have a safe space they are leaving the children to. Now that opportunity is how do we leverage on the existing structures to be able to strengthen the childcare. And another thing is on how do we move from having the conversation. And I love this particular conversation here because we have the caregivers who are the end users of the talks that you're having today. How do you bring them on board? And I'll be so much glad that as we continue with these conversations, we have the caregivers represented across the regions. We have here now from the informal settlements. We'll be very much happy as Greek to bring some from the rural parts of Kajiado. They're able to speak what are the uniqueness they're facing as caregivers in the rural parts of Kajiado. We have now Malimo speaking in Isiolo, Garissa. What is the different aspect that is happening there? So that you can be able to bring, as we are working on the context, as we are working on the structures, the tools, we are capturing the voices of every caregiver wherever they are. Even the skilling manual that you're developing, are they supporting them? And I'm glad that as we are speaking about skilling the workforce, we're also thinking about their welfare, because we are dealing with human beings that we need that for them to thrive. They're able to even have support the children for them to thrive. I know time is not our side, just give me 2 more seconds. And the other one is how we are able to adapt the models to to the different given context, and I've alluded to it when you're talking on how you're working with the local context. As you're working, whatever that is working in Kenya is not going to work in Tanzania, and you're able to adapt the different context in what you're doing. And my parting shot will be, as we are generating evidence, what action are we taking with the evidence that you are gathering? Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rita. Evidence-based advocacy. Thank you so much. I think this was a very good panel, not that the other one was not. It helped us recapture the memories we lost. Have I forgotten someone? Okay, maybe you can just tell us. So help us. This was a good panel because it's helping us recapture memories we lost. So I would call it a lost and found panel because we've recaptured a lot of what we've been silent about as a network, and which is quite important moving forward. We have not ended. I stood up because of time, and we have the Action Foundation. So I have a question for you, but we are gonna also play a clip at the end, a short clip. So Esther, from your experience working with children with disabilities and their families, what gaps exist in supporting caregivers to provide inclusive and disability-responsive childcare services, and what support systems are needed to strengthen inclusion? So as she answers, please prepare the clip. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you very much for the opportunity. And when we think about caregivers, I know we are all here to talk about caregiving and caregivers. And we are all caregivers, including myself. We have children who are at home with carers. But when you talk about caregivers of children with disabilities, the challenges are a lot more than your average person would experience. And some of the challenges we see, just to quickly go through them, we have one about caregiver knowledge. We all know when we go to the hospital and you are told your child has malaria, you get a prescription and you go home. Not many of us will follow up with a question, why do they have malaria? What am I supposed to do? You know? So many of our caregivers go to the hospital and they are told your child has a disability and they go home. So when they go home, what are they supposed to do with this child? How are they supposed to care for this child? How are they supposed to stimulate this child for growth and learning? How are they monitoring their developmental milestones and even helping the child be able to achieve the milestones? And also even for the severe children, feeding, safe feeding. We know that we lose very many children with disabilities due to poor feeding practices. So we have a very big gap in caregiver knowledge, especially after the diagnosis. How do they care for their children? We also have the mental burden on the caregivers. And here we would want to also highlight, as my colleagues have highlighted, the disproportionate burden of caregiving on the female caregivers. We had one of our caregivers who told us when they got their last born with a disability, the husband left. Therefore, the burden of caregiving is left with the female caregiver. And when we look in our homes, these female caregivers are the ones who are not able to participate in formal employment because they cannot juggle between economic activity and the full-time care of the children with disabilities. And most of the time, actually all the time, this caregiving is unpaid. And now it becomes worse in the single-parent households, because then how will she balance caring for this child and earning a living. So that's why you find there are those who lock their children in the house, because at the end of the day we have to eat and I'm alone. So it's quite a challenge, and also in terms of their mental space. Imagine how you feel when your partner leaves you by yourself. It's quite some challenge. We have also very high disability-related costs. Let's talk about therapy. Rehabilitation is lifelong. It's not one-off treatment. So the child will be in therapy for years. That's really expensive. Transport to the health facility is very expensive. Assistive technology that the child needs could be a hearing aid, could be a wheelchair, even the devices that are supposed to help the child to catch up on their milestones, they are really expensive and not easily accessible for most caregivers, especially even in the low income areas. And even in the economically well families, it's really a financial strain, just being able to take care of this child in an all-round manner. So when we look in terms of healthcare system, unfortunately, sometimes we have a very weak referral system where we don't have the multi-sectoral approach that is needed to take care of children with disabilities. So we have a lot of missed opportunities with a child with disability being diagnosed at 15 years. And you wonder, where has this child been for 15 years? Because they were born in a health facility, they went for vaccinations at a health facility, they had their growth monitoring at a health facility. When they fell sick, they also went to a health facility. So we have a lot of missed opportunities, especially in the healthcare system, because of our poor referral, and even sometimes because of inadequate skills, even of our healthcare workers in terms of developmental milestone check. And it's really unfortunate, because then a 15-year-old has missed their opportunity, because we understand that early intervention is very helpful to help children with disabilities catch up on their milestones. The other thing is, of course, insufficient early childhood services, where I can tell you right now, a lot of rehabilitation in Kenya starts at level 4. A level 4 facility is not always accessible to the parents in the low income areas. Not to mention they have to pay for it, transport, it becomes very inaccessible. And at the Action Foundation, we are trying to support the caregivers. Number one, their mental health. We believe when you treat the caregiver, you have treated the child. So we are supporting them to start the care groups, a lot of VSLA amongst themselves, so that they're able to even afford the basic commodities for their children, and as well as being able to support the children through mental health. Another challenge in the system as well is on policy, where inclusive policies have poor implementation. In Kenya, we have a lot of really good policies that if they were adequately implemented, the end person would actually benefit. So we also do a lot of advocacy work just to be able to see how can such policies be implemented. Of course, we know the barrier is always the budget and also training of the implementers, so that these policies are able to actually reach the people that are actually supposed to be reached. We also try to also train the healthcare workers just to be able to promote the multi-sectoral approach in healthcare, so that we don't have missed opportunities, so that a child is not missing school because when they went to the health facility, the doctor didn't know where to refer them to. So we also don't want a child in class, the teacher has pushed them behind because they don't understand that this child has a disability that is making their learning a challenge, so that if they are in school, they can be referred to where they can get rehabilitation. When they are in the facility, they are getting the care they need so that they are able to be ready to go to school. In addition to that, we are really empowering the caregivers just to be able to build their agency. You have seen one of our caregivers, Evelyn, just when you build the agency of one, you have built the agency of a lot more, because then she has friends at home and those friends have other friends. And so that way we are trying to even end the stigma and the discrimination that comes with households that have children with disabilities. Yeah.
Thank you so much for that. Before we have the clip, just a few words. Thank you for mentioning about implementation. We have very good policies and documents, big, that are in the shelves. If they're implemented, we'd be doing an amazing job, better than what's already happening. There's amazing work. But I think that this Lost and Found panel has also just brought out something that is important for every person who has a child, is caring for a child, or anyone that is okay, or old, elderly, or any form of care. That these people who come to help, they are visitors in your home. They're there for a time. If you are not able to compensate them, they wouldn't care about your child or whoever it is they're helping you care for. So at the end of the day, that is your home, whether you're renting or you're a homeowner, and they're there for the pay. Some of them, very few, do it out of the goodness of their heart. So let's remember that, so that even as we are raising our babies, that you have extra, if you can, extended family support. Because for me, an example, when I was raising my own children, they're now pretty much, I can stay without a help if I want. But sometimes, you need to rest. When the house help is away, I am the domestic manager, and no one can take that job away from me. So parents, be empowered, and remember that it's your home. It's your home. So if you can get extra extended family support, like we did traditionally, it can really, help go a long mile, because childcare is not new. It was there from before our forefathers and our ancestors were there. But the work that everybody is helping us do in our homes is a very important job, because we want to raise holistic children. So panel, thank you so much. And let's have the clip. Clap, clap. I won't clap. Thank you, everyone.
Everything is gone. In just a few hours, a place that meant everything to so many was reduced to ashes. This was our home. But before this, there was hope. For over 16 years, the Action Foundation has been a lifeline for children and youth with disabilities. And just last year, that lifeline found a new home. A space built to reach more children and youth with disabilities, more families, more communities. A safe haven where every child could be seen, heard, and supported. Until May 2nd, 2026, a fire tore through our headquarters and took everything with it. Years of work, memories, a dream we had just begun to live. But even now, the need is still here. The children are still here, and they are still counting on us. But we cannot rebuild without you. Today, we are asking you to stand with us. Your donation, no matter the amount, will help us rise again. To restore this safe haven, to continue our mission, to ensure no child is left behind. Because this was never just a building, it was a lifeline. And today, that lifeline needs you. Help us rebuild, help us restore hope. Donate now.
Thank you very much. The panel that was here, we say thank you very much. Did you give them a round of applause for that they did? Thank you very much. Secondly, TAF, I believe Esther Ngado comes from there, and I think there was also the caregiver from TAF. They had an issue, an incident, so it's upon us to stand with each other, find a way of standing together with them in encouragement, financially, ideas-wise, that we most welcome. We are proceeding on with our work webinar today. Those who are online, thank you for your being with us up to this point. We are at the tail end of this webinar. We are, unfortunately, because you're online, you missed the tea that we have taken, but we are just about to finish. Next, we're moving on to our speaker from the government. We had scheduled for a speaker from the ministry to do with children from the Office of Social Protection, but that was not, she wasn't able to make it. There was an appointment, I'm told the PS had an appointment with the President's office and couldn't make it for our meeting today. But nonetheless, she is together with us. Nonetheless, we still have the government with us. We have a representative from the Ministry of Gender, and I believe now we have Michiema, I hope I do not mispronounce this, sir. Michiemo Isaka. I hope I pronounce this correctly. Senior Gender Officer, State Department for Gender Affairs. Michiemo Isaka is a dedicated development professional, a gender specialist, currently serving as Senior Gender Officer at the State Department for Gender Affairs. He holds a Master of Arts in Social Policy Analysis and a Bachelor of Arts in Business Administration with a strong expertise in social development. With more than 3 years of experience in community development and 2 years in financial management, he has demonstrated commitment to advancing social inclusion and community empowerment. Join me in welcoming Michiemo Isaka. And forgive me if I've murdered your name. Please, karibu. Karibu. A round of applause. Serikali. Thank you. Welcome. Thank you.
Okay, good afternoon, all of you. As you have heard, my name is Peter Michiemo. Actually, I come from a policy background, and most of what maybe you can hear from me now is more of about policy, issues of policy, and how we address childcare within the policy context. I could also like to say that I'm also very spiritual. It's something I always admit, and maybe that's why sometimes I do a lot of research in this field. I want also to say this, that the care sector is a big sector, and this sector is actually largely, it has 3 elements. One of the first elements of the care sector is that it's largely unregulated. The care sector is largely unregulated. The second thing about the care sector is that it has some gaps. The care sector has various gaps, and one of the gaps which you and I think as experts you have come across is the gap that is largely there's no issue. There's actually it's more of pronounced one gender than the other. So you find that most of the roles which are played in this sector are actually more of female-dominated. There is also lack of social security. There are aspects of the gap in terms of pay, wages. There are also aspects of, that kind of, this sector actually is one of those sectors which really require more interventions for us actually to realize to realize the what benefits out of it. But also to note, the care sector is more of, as far as it has these gaps, it's one of those sectors that will largely contribute towards the economic development of the country, of Kenya in particular, and other countries. So you realize that as far as we have these gaps, it's one of the sectors that are largely most likely to promote the economic development and progress of this country. If we look at the investments that we can make, and also ensure that we invest in different areas. I would like to briefly actually go through a presentation that I did, of course, on behalf of the Principal Secretary, the State Department for Gender. I come from the Social Economic Empowerment Directorate, and I've been there for some time now, almost 4 years. And I've actually realized that one of the things that you can do, is actually to identify problems that people go through, especially at the community level, and be able to come up with feasible solutions towards solving their problems. And it's something I learned some time back, before even I joined the State Department, that in community development you must actually work and identify problems that people face, and also identify and also come up with solutions. So maybe that is something, of course, each of one of us knows and understands. Let me say that in this particular forum, I was supposed to discuss about advancing gender-responsive childcare system as a driver of women economic empowerment. And it's one of those sectors, the care sector is one of those sectors that are likely, if well invested, are likely to contribute highly towards the economic progress of women and other groups. And also all those investors who are likely to invest in this sector, whether they are men or whether they are potential investors, it's a sector that we are likely to feature a lot. The statistics from the Time Use Survey of 2021 indicates that women spend about 5 times more on unpaid care and domestic care as compared to men. And that means that women spend about 4 hours, 30 minutes, as compared to men who spend 54 minutes on such kinds of activities. Women actually bear more responsibility on care, more so on unpaid care work. And this, in one way or the other, it undermines the rights that they have in pursuing other economic opportunities. Researchers also, we all know that there is these gaps in the provision of childcare, especially for those children who are below the years of 3 years. In Kenya, of course, the ECD starts from the age of, which age is that, 4? Which is it? 4 years, yeah. Stayed from 4 years. And of course, this missing link has really played a lot in leaving women at home and not really pursuing those productive activities they are supposed to be productive about. And therefore, this calls for both public and private investment. I also want to say that this early age of care of children is one of those ages that are very critical, and research has indicated that a child, when that kid is between the age of 0 and 8 years, that's the time when that kid actually does what? Does a lot of development. You know? Yeah, that kid actually undergoes a lot of development in terms of the psyche of that kid. In terms also so many things that if that care is not really taken care, is not given, then of course you realize that there are some issues that could rise up later in terms of productivity of this kid, in terms of the education of this kid, in terms of even the health outcomes of this kid later on. And therefore this time of the year is very critical. I would also like to say that investment in care, in child care could really likely, statistics have indicated that if we were to invest in child care, especially for children between 0 and 3 years, we are most likely to have about 500, more than 500,000 jobs. And this would contribute to around 15 billion Kenyan shillings towards the annual fiscal revenues. So in terms of taxes. So that's why after the 2021 Kenya Time Use Survey was undertaken through cooperation between the government and KNBS and our stakeholders, we decided, the government actually developed the national care policy. And this policy is there to promote gender equality through the establishment of a care system that supports the well-being and dignity of all Kenyans, recognizes and rewards care work. And therefore, this policy will guide investment. I'm not saying that it will guide, but it actually identifies that investment in the care economy, the care sector, is likely to contribute very highly towards the progress of people and also the country as a whole. And therefore, with the potential to create numerous job opportunities. The objective of the national care policy is to promote gender equality through establishment of a care system that supports the well-being and dignity of all Kenyans, recognizes and rewards care work. And those objectives are to recognize and value unpaid care work. Sometimes we don't really value care work. Most people, when they look at caregivers, they see them as people who actually are doing the normal or routine work they are supposed to do. Sindio? Yeah, and sometimes they look down upon them. But these people actually are doing very, very important work. Yeah? And this undervaluation, these stereotypes for caregivers has gone all the way towards even influencing the amount of money they are supposed to get. So you can be able to see that we need to do a lot in terms of recognizing. We have come up with a framework of ensuring that all caregivers are recognized. The work they are doing is recognized. And also we have a framework of regulating the informal sector and the private sector, which is actually highly unregulated, especially in rural areas, where people are doing all this work using their hands and there is no infrastructure in place. So it's a sector that requires a lot of regulation and a lot of looking at what are the issues that need to be addressed. And that's why we have come in as government to ensure that we have a regulation, we have a policy in place. And I started by saying that children are people who are special people, not special as such, I'm sorry, that these are people who require care. But they require a lot of care in terms of nutrition, in terms of the safety of the environment which they live. Yeah? They're not supposed to be exposed to violent environments. Their kids are not supposed to be, really left like that, neglected. So these are people who actually require a lot of a safe environment. Even trafficking of kids. We have to be careful because we are operating in a very sensitive environment. And that's why the government is going to has committed to develop standards and regulations to ensure that in this policy you'll be able to see, once it's out from Parliament, we're going to see that we're going to develop standards to ensure that, even the way you operate a care center, there are standards to ensure that you operate it that way. So let me quickly move down to the thematic area of 3.5 on childcare. This thematic area of the care policy of 3.5 identifies inadequate legal framework to guide and regulate the establishment and operation of childcare facilities, and also the communities have limited information and knowledge on how to access affordable childcare facilities, services, and competent caregivers. Then the policy or actions under that thematic areas to develop legal frameworks and guidelines for the creation and operation of childcare facilities at the county level. Establishment. Remember, care work is devolved. Are we together? The care is actually a devolved function. We are going to work with the county government to ensure that the national policy is devolved, is actually customized. Establishment of government-sponsored care facilities for children under 4 years in the counties. Promotion and formalize legislation, operations, regulation, and monitoring of child care facilities, and development of a curriculum, training, and certification of children caregivers. That's what I heard, ladies and gentlemen. And I want to say that actually this is a very important forum that we have come together also to share our experiences and learning. Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you so much for that presentation. Ladies and gentlemen, we have another speaker. We have one speaker, and then we will have a closing remarks. Then we'll have the document that has been prepared, then we close. So next we have Cindy Lithimbi, who's the Policy and Partnerships Lead at Nurture First. Cindy is the Policy and Partnerships Lead with Nurture First, whose global mission is to build and improve systems that support the delivery of home-based childcare for children aged 0 to 3. Cindy is an agile development practitioner with over 13 years of entrepreneurship, nonprofit, corporate philanthropic, and consulting experience in the design and delivery of social impact and policy reform interventions in the childcare, education, and youth employment space. So welcome, Cindy, for your presentation.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm delighted to be here to offer this presentation. I just need to connect my laptop. Any tech support? Thank you. Okay. So once again, good afternoon, everybody. Yes, I'm sorry for that slight hitch. Well, first of all, it is a great honor to be here. I have really, really enjoyed the discussion so far. I think one thing that has stood out for me from the way this has been curated is that really we are one vast childcare ecosystem. Parents, employers, supported models, children, community models. We're all part of a much broader care ecosystem, and we really need to band together to achieve the change that we want to see in this sector and for our children in this country. So I want to just appreciate the organizers for the way this has been thoughtfully curated. So my name is Cindy Lithimbi, as been said. I work with an organization called Nurture First. Nurture First, as we wait for the slides, Nurture First is focused on strengthening systems that support home-based childcare. We define loosely home-based childcare to mean the care for children that is happening in the home of a childcare provider. It is informal in nature, it is unregulated, as we all know, and it is invisible in policy planning and budgets. I really liked what Elizabeth said earlier from Deepak, that domestic workers are the workers that make all forms of work possible. And as I thought about that, I also, informal childcare workers, home-based childcare workers are also enabling domestic workers to be able to provide care for all of us here who are in the formal economy. So we are all part of one interconnected care system, and we're all part of this care chain. And home-based childcare really is at the sort of lowest rung of childcare. It's the least visible part of this chain. And so Nurture First exists to strengthen the support systems, and we do this in 4 main ways. These are the 4 pillars that we see as critical, that need to shift and be strengthened in order to have strong support systems for home-based childcare. That's recognition, quality, financing, networks, and voice. And those are the outcomes that we're working towards in those four pillars. And we do this both at a county, at a country level, and at a global level. And at a global level, we're trying to elevate home-based childcare on global agendas and unlock financing, which is being enabled by a Home-Based Childcare Alliance, which was launched last week on the fringes of the ECD conference in Kigali. And that's made up of 7 partner organizations, 1 from each continent, all focused on elevating home-based childcare. We do this through evidence and learning and country system strengthening, which is more happening at a country level. Here, we're working with governments and partners to strengthen home-based childcare through designing and piloting interventions that support those 4 pillars, and then working with and through partners to help deliver them and help seed them into the system and support adoption. We're also heavily invested in institution building, policy standards, etc., and also then translating this knowledge that from a country level up then to a global level through the development of public goods like models, tools, and evidence at a global level. So that's about Nurture First and our role in the ecosystem. But what I'm particularly excited to talk about today is the broader childcare ecosystem, and I believe that that's the title of this presentation and this session, is the role of civil society actors in childcare. And so, the next slide, please. Oh, sorry, back slide. The map, yeah. There we go, okay. So back in 2023, when Nurture First was designing its intervention, we, together with our partners and several organizations here in the room, we mapped the ecosystem of actors. This was in 2023, and with a view to understanding who is already operating in this space and doing what, and then where could Nurture First play an additive role in the ecosystem. So this is an interactive ecosystem map. It lives on the website, and it's perhaps need a little bit of updating because there are now even more actors and more interest, more funders in the space, and also government playing a much stronger leadership and stewardship role. But the purpose of the map is to illustrate that childcare ecosystem is vast and it's complex, and it's comprising of multiple actors, all playing diverse and interconnected roles. And the panels and presentations today are a reflection of this. The care chain that I described earlier, the domestic workers, informal workers, us here in the room working parents, are a reflection of the interconnected roles of the ecosystem. In yellow is what we're talking about here, really, is the role of civil society, and so the civil society actors. So the map is interactive, it's on our website, you can engage with it and see and understand further. So broadly speaking, as civil society, I think there's a common understanding that we are working towards systems change. Like, we are thinking a lot about sustainability, who's going to do and who's going to pay after we have done our programs. In some instances, we're not thinking about that. It's really about delivering services that are needed in a context where there is no alternative. But I'd say for a large part, we're all thinking about how we're going to leave the system and how we're going to leave it stronger. And so that is one assumption that guides the rest of what I'll speak about. And as actors then, next slide please, we're playing a variety of roles in that ecosystem. Next slide please. There we go. And so, forgive me, it's a bit of it could be an abstraction, but for the purpose of this presentation and to illustrate what I'm trying to say, is that we're playing a variety of roles in the ecosystem. Some of us are implementers involved in service delivery, where we're either delivering integrated or standalone childcare interventions that are either targeting the demand side, parents, primary caregivers, or childcare providers themselves, or families, okay? And which is more of the supply side, or vice versa. Okay, and some of these activities include quality improvement programs. We've talked about parenting programs, community engagement programs. And so this work is really changing what gets delivered, hence service delivery or implementation. Some of us are also working towards what is required and what is getting funded and what is getting measured. And this is more of the evidence, policy, and advocacy work, okay? That's attempting to translate what we're seeing in service delivery and learning into evidence, policy, financing decisions, okay? Some of those objectives are there. And then lastly, we have conveners, okay? And that's really about, those actors are really working towards how actors align, how we coordinate, and how we share power. And we're fortunate to have the ECD network with partners Covao as well, and Kido, who have gathered us here, and are playing this role today. And so if our goal, reminding ourselves our goal is systems change then, what is it that we require as childcare actors? How do we achieve this? Next slide, please. And many of you will be familiar with this inverted pyramid. It shows the 6 conditions that are required to shift systems, okay? And they're divided into 3 main categories. And it's from a well-known resources by the consulting firm FSG. This was done in 2018. But essentially it looks at what are the things that need to shift for us to achieve the change we want at the systems level. And so we have, at the highest level, at the top of the pyramid, we have the policies, the practices, the resource flows, okay? And these are explicit changes. It's what most reform efforts focus on because it is the most tangible as well. So you can pass a policy, you can design a quality improvement program, a VSLA program as well, that even demonstrates improved child development, child growth outcomes, improved economic well-being for parents or primary or providers themselves. You can create a training manual. So many wonderful examples of this work in our context as well. Okay, at the policy level, we've heard about the care policy. The State Department is developing national childcare standards at present. The actors who are working to allocate budget, working with the County Assemblies Forum, for example. These are all explicit changes, and they're critically important. They're the highest level. But on their own, they're not enough to shift the system. If we're lacking the relationships, the coordination frameworks, the power and the mindsets in the system haven't shifted as well. And now these are the less visible conditions that are harder to address, as we all know. But they're the ones that create the greatest impact and have the long-term systems transformation in mind. Okay? And so the middle layer is really semi-explicit, that focuses on connections and power. Who is connected to whom? Who has voice? Who is trusted to lead? Who controls the decisions? And who's involved in that decision-making process? So a system, we may benefit from having a very strong policy, but if as actors we're not organized, counties are not coordinated, the grassroots, the community members are not organized, have limited influence, are not demanding quality as well, then implementation will remain weak. Okay? It's part of the solution, not all of it. And then of course, lastly, we have the mental models. Okay, and that's really asking ourselves, how do we perceive as a community, as a society, what are the norms around which we talk about and we view childcare? And I think we've heard so much about this today and our role, both as women and men, in that as well. So a key point here is that each of these conditions are interconnected. They're all mutually reinforcing. Okay, and they can all be addressed by all of us simultaneously, and we influence one another. So now if we just briefly try and map now, as actors, where are we playing in this ecosystem? Where are we playing with regard to the conditions that are needed to shift the system? Majority of us are operating at this structural change, explicit change level. Okay? And we understand this, from mapping the ecosystem, but also looking at funding flows, okay? Where is most of the money, and as you all know, most of it is going towards delivery, okay? We're delivering a quality intervention, a quality program. We're piloting a new financial inclusion intervention. We're trying to learn, etc. All of that is falling under practices, and some of it under policies as well. Typically, 50 to 60% of total funding is going to implementation and service delivery, and 25 to 30% is going towards research, policy, and advocacy. And just how we came to these figures is we looked at the biggest funders in the ECD ecosystem, and we're looking at childcare, but also ECD more broadly, and then looked at the programs they're funding to try and arrive at this analysis of funding. If we look at the semi-explicit, the relational change, okay, which is all about where conveners really operate. So us here, ECD Network, we have the Home-Based Childcare National Association as well, other conveners as well in the space and ECD sector. This is the realm where they're operating, okay? And we see that from funding, if you just go back a little bit, from funding, we're seeing that typically only 10 to 15%. And there's a growing body of work around who are conveners, and some people in some circles are calling them systems catalysts, but really, how do you define that role, and how do you ensure that it is well funded and well supported? Because ultimately, so little is going there, and much of the work that is so critical for coordinating action, particularly in this environment where we are now, it's resource constrained. Every penny we need to stretch it. We can't be doing the same things. So this layer is extremely important. And it also is important to ensure that all of our collective efforts, individual or organizational efforts at designing new programs, piloting new interventions, is actually translated into policy, practice, and further down into changing narratives and norms and values as well. And so the last slide then, there we go. The key take home then here is that we need to think about, and I'd invite us to think about, where we are all playing a role in these 6 conditions. How, as a collectively, we can coordinate and ensure that we are all providing the necessary investment at all the required levels in order to shift the system. And towards that, then, maybe just one point in closing. Last slide, if it's there, but I'll just speak to it. Oh, there we go. I think we've started, and there are many actors who also continue to do this, but we've started, and we're convening already, and we have no shortage of that, and there's a lot of interest and willingness from partners to do so. I think we need to define what this system is for all of us. And what is it that we're trying to strengthen, and what is the status of that system today? So when we look at the childcare ecosystem, what are its core pillars? Okay. There's recognition. We've identified 4 as nurture first, but there are others that fall between that, and others may look at it differently. But what is, as a sector, as an ecosystem of childcare actors, what is our view of the childcare ecosystem, and what are its pillars? What is needed to shift the practices in each of those pillars, okay? What is the ideal situation that we're aiming for in each of those pillars? And then really to go back to our ecosystem map, because there are new actors every day, and everybody has a role to play. No one actor can do it all. So who's doing what, and what is required to really reach that ideal situation? Where are the gaps, and what should be prioritized first? I think this is one area that we notice gaps, but we don't always prioritize action in a coordinated way. So we might have a gap that is more relevant for us to address 10 years from now than it is to address now. Is there a way in which we can channel our resources to address the next most important thing? Prioritization. And then lastly, how will we measure progress? There's always this question about contribution versus attribution. We want to be able to say that we are the ones who contributed to this systems change outcome. But really, we know it takes all of us, and we need to agree, all of us, as far as possible, how do we measure change collectively? How do we measure attribution to an outcome that we're all working collectively towards? So with that, I will end, and thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, we've consulted, and the program will remain as it is. So I'd like to call Leonard Chumo, who is the founder and executive director of Early Start Africa. Leonard is the founder and executive director of Early Start Africa. He was the founding board chair of the ECD Network for Kenya and remains a committed member. Leonard serves as a regional coordinator for Global Leaders Program of the World Forum Foundation, and he is a Global Leaders Fellow. He is an advocate for early childhood systems change and quality programs, expansion for all children regardless of their contexts. Leonard has consulted with different UN, government, and non-governmental organizations on public expenditure for children, policy frameworks for childcare, teenage motherhood, child protection, and inclusion, among other interests. He is a father of 2 and enjoys outdoors with his children. Leonard Valex Chumo, founder and executive director, Early Start Africa. Karibu sana.
Okay, good afternoon. I'm doing closing remarks, so we're closing. Yeah. All invited guests, protocols observed. Thank you for the wonderful conversations we've had entire morning to the afternoon. Forgive my voice a bit. A little cough changed my voice from being a Kenyan to someone from Europe or the West, I guess. But I hope you can hear me. And thank you, colleagues who are online. Let me first say that as an organization, Early Start Africa, we are making our contributions, just as many of you, and I take this moment to recognize the roles we all play, and especially the people who are doing the actual work, our caregiver managers, entrepreneurs, and the center managers and the actual caregivers on the ground. I think I look back many years ago when we started the ECD network, from very small boardrooms that we would ask people to help us to buy a cup of tea, help finance the meeting space for our consultations, and Stella and others will remember that. Colleagues from Kidogo, UNICEF, and others. And we've come a long way. And I'm not talking about a century. It's just about a decade or thereabout. We've already made some progress. We would not have caregivers in the house. The conversation would not have been very real. We were talking about theories, and we were trying to convince people that early years really matter. And most of us were not even from early childhood. I remember I had just come from working for Barclays, and so conversations about early childhood were really new, yet we were supposed to drive that conversation. So I take this moment to celebrate the steps that we've made, but I also recognize that we still have a long way to go. And as an organization, we're making our small difference, and that's what matters. We build a model, and not necessarily physical, but a model of early childhood transitional programs that support parents and communities to facilitate. Again, our work with parents is to support, not to train them, not to tell them what to do. And we're just coming in to play a supportive role. And that's what we all must acknowledge. We're not experts in parenting. I'm a father of two. And they told me a long time ago, you cannot write a book about teenage parenting until you have graduated from being one. So none of us is an expert in parenting until you have actually exceeded the parenting stage. And we know today that parenting never stops. We have grandmothers, grandparents, so that job will always evolve. And so we will always be supporting and not be the experts. And we are engaged in parent support initiatives, transition to play-based early learning programs, and influencing similar public and private sector conversations. So from my listening here today, we have derived many consensus, and I just list some of them. The first 5 years are crucial in child development, a period of rapid brain growth that shapes the future of a child, health, learning, and success in life. We also do agree that quality childcare services and programs is an entitlement for every child. It's a right. Again, we always position ourselves as bakers, but the work we do is central. It's a right of every child, whether you're in Marsabit, where we work, or in Kwale, or in Nyanza. Every child has a right. And we need to move with that spirit, that what we're offering is a right for every child. We also have a consensus, and just the immediate speaker mentioned that partnership will define the depth and breadth of the work which we seek to deliver. So we have to work together, academia, government, civil society, childcare providers on the ground, philanthropists, and everyone. And we must enlarge the table to accommodate public and private sector actors, the national, county, government, practitioners, civil society, UN agencies, private entrepreneurs, and most of them happen to be women as we speak. And then access to childcare, quality, and we also need to really rethink about what quality means, because we're not just speeding our children through a period of childhood, but we would like them to get the very best that is possible for us to provide for children. And it's considered one of the biggest barriers to workforce participation while quality childcare can give children a better start in life and learning. That's consensus. And lastly, from just my summary, is that childcare is a shared responsibility and also a privilege. Those of us who are parents or running institutions for care know that shepherding or stewarding the life of a child is a huge privilege that we have. And I always tell teachers, it's the greatest calling in life to be a teacher or a caregiver, because you literally see children transitioning through your hands. Most of us have become who we are because of the nurture that teachers gave to us. So it's both a privilege and a responsibility for men and women, and also for public and private, government stakeholders and those of us out of the government. It's a privilege. So we are building a solid trajectory and a pathway for the development of human capital and pluralistic societies. And for me, it's more than a Singapore dream. And, thank you, Cindy, for talking about mind shift, mental shift. Childcare has to cascade down to what we believe in and desire to deliver, quality. We're not just developing productivity of a nation, but we actually want to elevate it to the level where it's a right, it's quality, and the way we design our cities, again, there's just challenges everywhere. We haven't designed for children and with children in mind. When we're doing the upgrades of the slums, what is it for children in that plan? What about the play spaces, the community playgrounds, the safety of children crossing, childcare facilities? Are we thinking about them? So we still have a way to go. But I believe with these conversations, we're moving in that direction. So moving forward, the greatest burden from where I see remains with women, and our priority for financing, and we don't have financial institutions here, but maybe some are watching online. Workforce development, including the domestic worker engagement, policy and advocacy, what we're doing in those fronts, which we've made really great progress, should elevate the role of women in the space. We should push forward the role of women, and how does that translate into improved living standards, quality of life for women and for children. The growing interest for men, like myself and Michael and others, and those of you who are in this room because this is what you love to do, is an inspiration that will stamp and add great value to this sector. So therefore, let us design, implement, advocate, and converse around what works for us as a community, what works for children, and what must we do urgently. I encourage you, and there was Irene from research, that we should continue to design research opportunities for studying indigenous knowledge on childcare within the region. And I propose areas of studies such as fleshing out the gaps in the access and quality, as those two may be very different. Childcare divide. Over the last 1 week, as I was preparing for this webinar, I was thinking about why aren't there sufficient childcare facilities in the upmarket? Is it a preserve of the poor and the low and middle income communities? We have to rework that model. It cannot be reserved for Korokosho, Kibera, and small income communities. This is good for children who are also growing up in front of television the whole day, no opportunities for play. And we must rethink how do we encourage all society participation in childcare. So we need more research on that. Climate change and childcare social norms, someone talked about that. And then harnessing AI, a great conversation that is timely for expanded childcare in the sub-Saharan Africa. So I encourage you to treasure and accelerate the interest within the government on childcare. That's really emerging, and as a country, I think we are leading the conversation. And thanks to our colleagues from Line Ministries for falling in love with this conversation and also participating fully. The childcare policy development, both in the national and county level, I think those are treasure and should be accelerated. My challenge as we come close to the end of this is that we do more than we speak, though we must speak. Let's do more than we speak. However, we must speak. And I see we move from this webinar to another conference tomorrow, then another one on Friday, and another next week. So we're doing a lot of speaking, which is good, and we must speak. However, let's do more, and that's why these guys matters. Let's support them on the ground. Let's see actual programs for children. Even though we must speak, our convenings should translate into actions. Our communiques, one is coming up, should translate into deliverable programs for women, children, and families. And our policies must not be suggestions, as someone said, but they should have budgetary allocations. Thank you, and nice afternoon.
Thank you so much, Leonard, and everyone for your patience. Ladies and gentlemen, everyone, we are coming to a close, and we have a call to action here that has been put together by Corval. They've done amazing work putting it together. I'd like to thank everyone who has been behind the scenes working to make today a success. Yourselves, thank you so much. For those who traveled to come here, and for everyone that is supporting the event, we say thank you. And I will read for us this call to action. Thank you so much, Corval, and everyone else. So, empowering women and men through enhanced childcare support systems, linking childcare support with women's economic empowerment and labor force participation, written on 12th May 2026, and we have several logos: ECD Network Kidogo, Corval, and WUSC. There are key issues that were raised, and I'll read them. Increase and sustain investment in childcare systems as a foundation pillar of economic and social development. The next one is promote equal sharing of caregiver responsibilities to advance gender equity at household and workplace levels. Strengthen targeted support systems for caregivers and children with disabilities to ensure inclusion and dignity. Professionalize childcare work through clear regulation, recognition, and formalization of care rules. Strengthen targeted support system for caregivers of children with disabilities to ensure inclusion and dignity. Establish robust monitoring, accountability, and support systems for childcare workers to ensure quality, safety, and fair work conditions. Those are the key issues that brought everybody's thoughts and whatever discussions have happened today together. But we have a call to action for government, the private sector, and development partners whom support the very important work that we do. And given the realities in the communities, in our workplaces, in our homes, and wherever we are. So the call to action for government, private sector, and development partners has 6 actions. 1, increase investment in childcare systems that are affordable, accessible, and high quality to enable women's economic empowerment and greater participation in the labor force. Promote shared caregiving responsibilities by actively engaging men through targeted awareness campaigns, policy advocacy, and community-level engagement to shift social norms. Number 3, strengthen support systems for caregivers of children with disabilities, including psychosocial, financial, and broader social protection measures to ensure inclusion and dignity. Number 4, implement community sensitization programs to address stigma and discrimination against children with disabilities and their caregivers, fostering more inclusive communities. Number 5, professionalize the childcare sector through standardized training, certification, regulation, and enforcement of labor protections to ensure decent work conditions and quality care. 6, establish robust monitoring and safeguarding systems to protect the well-being, safety, and professional growth of domestic workers and childcare providers. So together, we can transform childcare and into a recognized, supported, and dignified sector that enables both children and caregivers to thrive. So that is our call to action. We have a dissemination plan that will be fully enforced after we are done here. And this call to action can really guide the work that is being done so that there's concerted efforts and everybody knows what the other is doing and what is guiding them. So thank you so much for your thoughts and for putting that to paper. So our next webinar is in July. We welcome you to that as well. Look forward to the communications from the Secretariat. And then expect certificates for participation. So thank you so much. We close now, and you're free to go home. God bless you. God bless everyone. God bless Kenya. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your, is it on? Can you hear me? Yeah, thank you very much for your participation throughout this morning. We have come to the end, and lunch is served. So you take your lunch before you go home. Online, next time when you join us, you'll also take lunch.